I Hate Politics is a podcast about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. The latest bicyclist to die on the streets of Montgomery County, Maryland, was 11-year-old Summer Lim. She died on October 9th this year, on her way back from school, run over while in a crosswalk by a school bus driver taking other students from her middle school back home. The exact circumstances of her death are under investigation, but it is notable that she was killed on a piece of road space specifically designed to protect pedestrians and bicyclists. Plenty of people die on roads, pedestrians, bicyclists, and more than any other group, other drivers and passengers. Like other advanced industrial societies, road deaths in the United States declined between 1990 and 2011, but then went back up quite significantly to almost 1990 levels, and now is in decline again the last couple of years. But still, nearly 8,000 deaths above the 2021 low point. The low point for pedestrian and bicyclist road deaths came in 2009 and 2010 respectively, but has since nearly doubled to 8,469 deaths in 2023. 2024 saw a small reduction to 8,314. Montgomery County fits the trend line. 6 pedestrian deaths in 2012, a high of 24 in 2024. And this year, for the first half, we are at 13 deaths, 12 pedestrians, and Summer Lim on her bike. In 2022, 19 pedestrians and cyclists were killed in Montgomery County. One of them was 42-year-old Sarah Langenkamp, a State Department official recently evacuated from Ukraine, only to be killed by a driver while riding her bike on River Road in Bethesda, Maryland. She was 42. The driver got the maximum possible punishment: $2,000 in fines and 150 hours of community service. The length of time his driver's license was to be suspended was determined by the Maryland Motor Vehicles Administration. Since her death, Sarah's husband, Dan Langenkamp, has made it his life's work to improve road safety, especially for bicyclists and pedestrians. And Summer Lim's death hit him hard. He emailed to thank me for our reporting on the tragedy. I asked him how he thought his advocacy since Sarah's death was going. I thought, if political leaders, departments of transportation, and others would listen to anyone, it would be the bereaved husband of a woman killed by an automobile while riding her bike. Dan Langenkamp has organized an annual bike ride in his wife Sarah's memory. This year, the event is scheduled for November 16th. We will have participation information at the end of the show. Stay with us.
I Hate Politics is brought to you by UMBC's Political Science Program, where you'll learn to shape public policy, impact communities, and function at the center of modern society. Learn more at shadygrove.umbc.edu.
Walked this road about 1,000 times. You think by now I would have got it right. Broken pieces to pick up again. Cycle back to where we began. But I don't mind. Maybe I don't mind suffocating, but I love the home to you every time.
I Hate Politics is a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse and democratic societies. This means our politics are messy, dirty, sometimes corrupt, with often self-serving politicians. But no matter how much we may hate politics, we are never exempt from it. Even when We refuse to participate. In fact, the purpose of politics is to keep society functioning precisely when we don't agree with each other, like now. Music for this episode comes from Montgomery County native and now DC based singer-songwriter Kara Levchenko's two new single releases, I Don't Mind and Tell Me What You Want. You can find her and her music at karalevchenko.com.
Suffocating, but I love the high. Coming on to you every time. Like a moth drawn to a flame, I find my way back in your arms. The two of us feel so alike, but I can't repel. I wish you well. What we have just may suffice.
Dan Langenkamp, welcome to I Hate Politics.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Sunil.
Your wife, Sarah Langenkamp, was struck and killed by a driver August 25th, 2022, 3 years ago. You are now planning the 4th annual bike ride in her memory on November 16th. We will talk about the memorial bike ride in just a minute, but I want to begin with the recent death of 11-year-old Summer Lim. Summer was on a bike like your wife, Sarah, and died under a school bus coming back from school. You have been fighting for bicyclist and pedestrian safety since your wife died. Following Summer Lim's death, I had a testy text exchange with a community member calling me out for saying that she was struck by the school bus driver. She said, and I quote, "This is just an incredibly horrible tragedy that could have happened to any one of our children, with no villain to blame." No villain to blame. So many people think of pedestrian and bicycle deaths as a problem with no villain to blame. How do you see it?
Well, I think that's why a lot of people have come up with this word accident to describe these events, because they don't want to ascribe blame in these cases. And I actually don't agree. One of the problems is that people do make mistakes. And that's what we have to correct for. People make mistakes, and so that's why we have crosswalks, where the pedestrian, by definition, has the right of way. You are supposed to stop for anybody in a crosswalk. The vehicle has to stop. Now, we haven't seen the crash report yet, but the evidence is clear. There was a girl, she was in a crosswalk, and she was run over. I don't see how you can say that that is her fault, certainly. It should be the vehicle's fault by definition, because she was in what we call a protected space. We have many of them. One is school zones. You drive slower. Bike lanes. Those are protected spaces. We have behind school buses when they stop and they put out their stop sign. That's a protected space. You're not supposed to drive through it. The kids in that area have right of way. So I disagree. And I don't like this sort of presumption that the person on the bike or the person walking was at fault. It's sort of, there's a bias towards that. Now, this person didn't say that, but there is a societal problem that we have. We try to sort of absolve drivers of blame because most people find themselves in the driver's position. I would say as drivers, we all need to be more careful. We all need to be more patient. We all need to realize that these huge vehicles that we're driving are incredibly dangerous for people that are outside them.
She was objecting to my description of the crash as the school bus driver striking Summer Lim.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It was a driver. There is a person. Yes, a bus physically hit her, but that bus is conducted by a person. So I actually agree with your characterization that there is a driver behind it. You have to talk about people who are involved. It doesn't happen without them. I do sympathize. Sometimes I slip up myself and I say my wife was hit by a truck. And physically she was hit by a truck, but there was a driver that was to blame involved in that for being inattentive. And so it's just not right to say that she was hit by a truck.
When we cannot assign responsibility for tragedies, what is the chance that we can even fix them?
That's the thing. I mean, if you're sort of saying that this is a problem that happened naturally as some kind of so-called accident, then you're never going to do anything about it. And in fact, as our cars get bigger and as they get heavier and as people get more distracted, we're just going to find more and more and more people killed. We have a big problem, and that is that if we don't take responsibility for the changes that we're seeing in our society and we don't act to sort of correct them, then we're just going to have a worse problem with more people dying. Little girls like Summer, professionals, mothers like my wife, and other people.
What progress have you seen in 3 years of advocacy work for pedestrian and bike safety?
Well, I mean, okay, in Maryland, I'm glad that there was a bill, a law passed named after Sarah, my wife, that now says that you can get jail time for hitting somebody or seriously injuring or killing them if they're in a bike lane. Before that, people would be surprised to know there was virtually no penalty. The driver who killed my wife got 150 hours of community service, a license suspension of 6 months, and a $2,000 fine for killing somebody. And I think we can all agree that is ludicrous. Even the judge said, there's nothing I can do because the law limits what I can impose here. And in almost any other industry, there's serious consequences for killing somebody. If you poison somebody in a restaurant and kill somebody, if you build a house and it falls on people, if you design a faulty product that kills somebody, there's manslaughter charges that are imposed upon you. But somehow for driving, we have this carve out. And advocates say, if you want to kill somebody, do it in a car because you're going to get away with it. And that is, what we got changed in Maryland. So now you can get up to 2 months jail time for seriously injuring or killing somebody in a bike lane. Not enough people know about that law, and I'm not even sure if it's been used yet. So there's a lot of there's a ways to go. In 3 years, I mean, to answer your question directly, I don't think enough has been done. We've seen some changes. That's good. I see a slow recognition among elected leaders that this is a serious issue to deal with. But this is not a thing that's going to get changed in 3 years. It's a change that it takes generational change. And that's what I am after.
What is the movement in Congress? There's a bill there too.
The bill named after my wife is called the Sarah Debink Langenkamp Active Transportation Safety Act. And essentially, it does something very simple, which is it gives states and communities more power and flexibility to use highway money, federal highway money, to build biking and pedestrian infrastructure. Montgomery County wants to build a new separated bike lane on River Road. They don't have the money to do it. They can draw upon federal highway money to do that with this bill. It's a little bit more complicated than that. What it really does is it eliminates the matching funds in cases where the state wants to not use matching funds. Typically, like Montgomery County, we would have to put up 20% of the cost. And that 20% is what keeps communities all over America from being able to afford this kind of infrastructure. It's bipartisan. So we have 9 members of Republicans in the House and 9 Democrats in the House. And then we have 2 Republicans in the Senate with 3 Democrats. And that number is going to increase. We had many more in the last Congress, but we're marching along with just 1 Republican signing on for 1 Democrat. It's called the Noah's Ark approach. And we don't sign on a Democrat unless we have a Republican. But we're very hopeful that it's going to get folded into the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Act. That's a big 5-year bill that does all transportation in America. It's getting drafted right now, despite the shutdown.
Do you see change in car culture? What is called this idea that we privilege cars over all else? Do you see any shift in that, and particularly among professionals that are working on this, traffic engineers and such?
Honestly, no, I don't see it. Our country is addicted to cars. To me, this whole thing is really about how does our community look and how does our community feel for people? How livable is it? We want to live in a community where you can simply get around without having to get in a car. and we can let our kids ride their bikes without fear of them getting killed. Where my wife or your wife can drive, someone can, ride home from an elementary school without making a life or death decision. So we all believe in that. And actually I think there is movement in that direction. As I said earlier, communities that do these kind of investments that are walkable and bikeable, that have bike paths, are more pleasant to live in. To me, that is what it's about.
We go to Europe and we love it. We see all the bikes and we can walk everywhere, and then there are narrow streets and little bistros, and we are sitting outside, drinking coffee, and then we come home and we live a completely different suburban life.
I was going to say that, actually. We all love going to, almost anywhere in Europe. And it's not only that you get to sit outside, it's that you get to sit outside and there is not the roar of traffic and the smell of exhaust in right next to you.
As early as the 1970s, by the way, I can't remember who it was, but somebody wrote an article saying that America had gone from being a front porch society to a patio and deck society as a consequence of the automobile.
Oh, that makes perfect sense to me. Moves to the backyard. I lived on a block at one point with very little street traffic, and it was really, really great. We sat on our front porches, and our kids ran around on the front lawns and in the street, and we had no worries about it. It was wonderful. And it was more the thing about it. If you move back to the patio, then you're more sealed off from your neighbors. You're not living a communal life.
There is another part of car culture we haven't talked about, which is the prosecution of those that kill with cars. Now, in Sarah's case, there was some punishment. It's absolutely inadequate. But there is almost never any serious prosecution of pedestrian deaths unless there are confounding variables, which is driving under the influence or hit and runs.
Yeah, and it does get back to this issue that where the pedestrian or the cyclist is often blamed, and that person is often dead, so they don't get to testify in favor of themselves. There's like this assumption, and there's a big problem with juries as well. They call it the windshield effect. That is where juries often sympathize with the driver because they put themselves in the driver's seat more often, because more people are driving more of the time.
And I can understand that with cycling, but almost every driver is also a pedestrian.
This is a big issue. Enforcement is really important. It does matter. And negligent drivers who are just looking at their phones, who are speeding, who don't care about people in the roads, need to be held accountable. There's a lack of accountability in America in general, and it is something that is, I think, it's not only drivers, but it's also the industries that are involved in benefiting from cars. The car industry does not want to have drivers held accountable. So there's a lot of forces that go against holding people accountable. It is different in other parts of the world where driving is seen as a real privilege, where not only in Europe do you not drink and drive, you cannot have any alcohol in your system. If you have any, you will lose your license. A lot of people in the advocacy community that I've learned about in the last 3 years say that really what you want to do is design a system where it's not enforcement that you're relying upon, because you're never going to be able to enforce all the laws in order to save lives all the time. What you really want to do is create a system that has redundancies that make it safe. So you want to have safer roads. That means design that slows people down and makes traffic smoother. You want to have safer cars, with automatic emergency braking and other new technologies that will save people. You want to have, of course, safer drivers, and that's through drivers' education campaigns, and then you get to the enforcement issue to make people more attentive. And then you need to have better post-crash care. And so with all 5 of those things, you can actually, and we know this, there's data behind it, you can reduce deaths.
Yeah, the argument you made about enforcement, which is obviously you cannot enforce, everywhere all at once, is also applicable to road, but you can't redesign the entire road network where Summer died is a busy road, but it is not Norbeck Road or it's not Rockville Pike. It's not even River Road where Sarah died. They're going to fix River Road first, and then at some point in the priority list will be Bower Drive and Russet where Summer died. And in the interim, people are dying.
I agree. It's a challenge. There's no doubt about it. I think that if we do care about this issue, though, what we do is we do it all, and you chip away at the problem.
Do it all is the reason nothing gets done.
True. Okay. If you think you have to do it all, then maybe you do nothing at all.
Right.
I think what I was trying to get to is the fact that people just need to care about this issue.
So how do you fix that? What is your experience of the 3 years?
There is a kind of cognitive dissonance. When I talk to people about what happened to Sarah, they are incredibly sympathetic and they are horrified by what's happening. Nobody wants to see 11-year-olds in crosswalks die or 16-year-olds just crossing the street die. It's awful. I always compare this to airplane deaths. One airplane in a national airport crashes and kills 60 people. It is an awful tragedy. And we understand that. But it causes congressional hearings. It causes major investigation into reforms. It has reams or weeks or if not months of news coverage. We have 100 people dying in America every single day, more than 100 people. And yet we don't have this kind of conversation about cars. And so that is a huge problem to me. What role does it play in the county council elections that are coming up next year? I mean, I think it needs to be a part of that discussion. What frustrates me, and I'm just going to be completely honest, when I hear a candidate talk about it, I hear a pall sometimes in the room, like people don't even care. It's mentioned last. And I am a little bit livid about that. Like, this is an issue. People are dying. It affects all of us.
Part of the reason why you hear that pall in the room has to do with the fact that it is so overwhelming. People don't see how they could do something. And if they did, what would happen?
People don't know this, but the reason that the Netherlands has so many bike paths and is such a bike-friendly place now is because of a movement that happened in the 1970s called Stop Killing Children. And it was mothers in the 70s who were angry about all the trucks that were roaming around their neighborhoods killing people. And so they started a safety movement, and it became a real subject of conversation. What happened there was not just some organic thing that resulted as a fact from people bicycling around windmills. No, it came because people cared. Victory to me looks like incremental change that's steady and positive. So I look, for example, at new developments like the West Bard, okay, near where Sarah was killed. It is a slower road. The design is better. There are separated bike paths and sidewalks on each side of Brookfield Drive. It has a little pedestrian square where you can hang out. It looks better. You compare that to River Road, where Kenwood Station Mall is, where Whole Foods and Sarah's Ice Cream is. And it is vastly better than that. The bike lane now that's on River looks good. It's got green paint. It's got stanchions. When something new is built, it needs to look like that. When we redesign, it needs to take pedestrians and bicyclists more seriously.
In order for us to get this new infrastructure, somebody has to come along and say, I'm going to redevelop. And in return for those redevelopment rights, I'm going to put in these protections. But that's a heck of a wait, and it's a crapshoot. So, we're not going to get to Bower and Russet where Summer Lim died. We can get to West Bard, but not to Bower and Russet.
Well, I should add that, we do need to look at roads like River and roads like Georgia Avenue, which is a total death trap right now and killing lots of people. And I, plead with people to be patient with the Department of Transportation and the State Highway Administration when they redesign stuff. People hate losing a lane of traffic in order to build a bike lane, and they need to be more patient. Not all of it is going to be perfect. There's a lot of controversy around Georgetown Road, but it's done for a good reason. And because two people died on that, young kids who had good futures in front of them, families that are now wrecked because of it.
On Old Georgetown roads, the neighborhoods, the people that live there are overwhelmingly, I would say, 90% against those bike lanes on Old Georgetown Road. Councilmember Andrew Friedson was at the center of getting those bike lanes in place. And now he's running for county executive. Because of the opposition that he faces on the bike lanes on Old George, there is a good chance that he may not become county executive. What does that say then to politicians who you expect them to do the right thing?
It's a tough message. And I really applaud Andrew for his political courage, and the other, delegates in Maryland and senators who have the political courage to really think about the long term of our society. Andrew was there from the very first moment that Sarah died, and he cares about people. And so he's thinking about those murdered. That's not fair. But those killed kids and their families. And it is important that we do something to improve safety.
One of the biggest complaints I've heard about the Old Georgetown bike lanes is that no one uses it, or very few people use it.
It's a mile long. So yeah, how can you expect anybody to use it imagine if you had to drive to work and you had a mile of road and the rest of it was farmland. Of course you wouldn't use that road. Nobody would use it. So yes, you've got to connect this stuff. And I should just say a pitch for Sarah's law in Congress right now. What it does is allows communities to specifically use federal money to connect disconnected pieces of bike and ped infrastructure.
That raises the issue, though, of you wanted incrementalism. Building a network is not incremental.
I only say that because that's realistic politically. We don't have the money in Maryland right now to do it all. So we need to chip away at it. And I have to say, I'm really impressed by the Department of Transportation. When I talk to them, I can see that they care about this issue. And when they plan stuff, they generally are planning it right.
One of the big parts of all of this is that, you can enforce everywhere. You can redesign every road. Why not have an annual driver education piece that is free to people and include, by the way, not just drivers, but bikers and pedestrians and everybody to go through to reset the expectation as to what needs to be done on the road?
I don't think you're ever going to get people to do a course every year. Honestly, but I do think that actually, I totally agree. We need to get re-educated at least every 5 years. Who knows about the new bill named after Sarah in Maryland that you could get jail time for hitting somebody in a bike lane or killing or injuring somebody? Nobody knows about it because there's no education program affiliated with it. I actually had a friend who went through a program because she got an infraction. This was in Oregon. And she said it was the best program. She learned all these things that she hadn't known because she took driver's ed when she was 16, And she was like, this was actually really practical. I'm a better, safer driver. I think we all should. And now we have all this new technology in our cars, and there are new laws related to bicyclists. There's there's bike lanes. None of that stuff existed when most people were learning how to drive.
Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming ride in memory of your wife, Sarah. How many years have you been doing it? Where is it going to happen? Is there a website? Where do people sign up? Tell us.
Yeah. Okay. It's on November 16. I would love to see a lot of people there we're going to ride from Caroline Freeland Urban Park in Bethesda, right near the Bethesda Metro. And then we're going to go to the Lincoln Memorial. It's going to be hopefully a nice day, and it's an easy ride. It's mainly downhill. Hopefully I have about 1,000 people. We had 1,100 people registered last year. It's the fourth year we've done it. We had almost 2,000 the first year right after Sarah died. It's on World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims. We're remembering not only pedestrians and cyclists who've died, but everybody on our roads who've died. We're going to be pushing and issuing a kind of a letter of requests for the government, for Congress in specific. Passage of Sarah's Act to make bike and ped infrastructure easier to build by communities. But also in Maryland, we're going to be asking for a program called Intelligent Speed Assistance, where if a person is going to have their license suspended or revoked as a result of moving vehicle infractions, like speeding or reckless driving, they would get a speed limiter put in their car to keep them from behaving like that in the future when they get their license back. This was passed in D.C., it was passed in Virginia, it's being passed in elsewhere, in Washington State and some other places. They found that actually 20% of all road deaths are caused by these super speeders, people who are repeated dangerous drivers. So if you can get them off the road or get them slowed down, then you're going to make a lot of progress. Anyway, it's a great ride. We'll have some great speakers, like a guy named Chuck Mahone, who wrote Strong Towns and Confessions of a Recovering Engineer, who's a real national leader in progressive urban design movement. Jamie Raskin should be there.
Where do people sign up?
You go to rideforyourlife.org and you can just sign up there. We need volunteers too. So if anybody wants to register folks when they come in, even kids can get SSL hours for volunteering for us.
Dan Langenkamp, I hope you have a successful ride November 16th. Thank you for joining the show.
Thanks so much, Sunil. Great talking.
Find me in the crowd tonight, tongue-tied. Dance with me under cotton candy skies. We can leave the pain of the past behind, lean into the moment, dancing the night away. We can have whatever we want, start a renaissance. I could be a confidant, baby, won't you tell me what you want?
That's all for this episode of I Hate Politics, where we aim to stem the decline in local news by working with community voices. Don't forget to tune in to our Tuesday morning news analysis. I Hate Politics is produced by me, Sunil Dasgupta, with support from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I direct UMBC's political science program at the universities at Shady Grove in Montgomery County, where, among other things, we explore and learn about politics and government and society close to home. Music for this episode comes from Montgomery County native and now DC-based singer-songwriter Kara Levchenko's two new single releases, I Don't Mind and Tell Me What You Want. You can find her and her music at karalevchenko.com. I hope you will subscribe and share the podcast as we bring you stories about politics close to you and to your home. See you next time.
We can watch all the colored lights again. We can leave the pain of the past behind, lean into the moment, dancing the night away. We can have whatever we want, start a renaissance. I could be a confidant. Tell me what you want.